Alright, so I play club soccer and club ultimate frisbee, and on both teams I felt pressured to be like extra straight, so to speak, before I knew that I liked girls, because I thought everyone perceived me to be gay. And then after I examined my sexuality, so to speak, I felt it was easier for me to come out to the frisbee team, whereas it was a lot harder for me to come out to the soccer team, and I'm still not fully out.
Has that stereotype that women are supposed to be bigger, like taller, wider shoulders, kind of like built like a man almost. So people are very surprised when I say I play lacrosse because I'm only 5'4", I'm not that huge, masculine looking girl. And there's just a stereotype that you're supposed to be like a manly version of a female and kind of like gay in that sense because you're supposed to be like the dude in a relationship. So everybody assumes that I'm supposed to be like into girls. I'm supposed to be this masculine type. So when I say that I'm straight and that I play lacrosse, people just kind of don't know how to respond to that, and they just kind of don't know how to act. They kind of just like seem confused and they just don't know what to talk about, and the conversation kind of just dies. I feel like.
Okay. I feel like playing rugby has made me a lot more comfortable with like both my gender and my sexuality. So I feel like in like the way I portray being a female, playing a sport where you have to be so like physical and brutal and not feminine so intensely with a bunch of other women makes you kind of really take away all of the superficial ideas about what being a woman is and like what being female is, and like get down to like the core of it with all these other women. And it makes it like I see it play into my day-to-day life a lot also, where I just don't worry a lot anymore about like what I'm looking like or how I'm portraying myself or whether I'm being girly enough or not girly enough. And I just let it be more of like however I am acting female that day, as opposed to whether like I am fitting into certain boxes I'm supposed to be fitting into. And then in terms of my sexuality, I've kind of always known that I wasn't straight, but coming into rugby was the first time I was in a community that was so equally not straight. And like even like one of my first couple of practices, people were like joking around talking, and some girls started talking about guys she had a crush on, and then some of the other girls were kind of like, man, like I don't want to have to listen to that, like why are you talking about guys? And it was like just been kind of continuation of like that kind of idea of like I'd never been in a space before where it wasn't a given that a group of girls would be talking about guys, and it was really refreshing and eye-opening to be able to talk about like whatever person I was interested in at the time with my friends and not have to think about who they were or how they would respond. So it's made me a lot more comfortable with being open about who I was, even if I had already been pretty comfortable with it like inside of myself.
So as a kid, I always played soccer, and I never really thought about how that influenced my gender or sexual identity. I had always identified as straight. And then transitioning into college, I joined the rugby club team here my sophomore year and didn't see a deep impact on my personal sexual identity until fairly recently, which is coincidental. But upon sharing the news that I joined, a lot of peers who have known me for some time, and even family members, presumed that my affiliation with the team meant my coming out of the closet, which was really interesting because I had never viewed extracurriculars to be an expression of sexual identity in any way. But now I am on the women's rugby team. I am dating a fellow woman on the women's rugby team, and it is really interesting how my story makes more sense to people. And people even know attributes of my hand gestures, my mannerisms, my manner of dress that haven't changed since high school, but are now indicative of my gayness. And to me, I think that's interesting. I think it's just people having hindsight bias maybe, but to me, it is just who I am. To me, it's not effortful, purposeful expression of my sexual or personal identity. But yeah, I'd say sports is an interesting institution through which people might choose to express certain things.
Okay, so back in high school, I was on badminton, which is stereotypically more of a very feminine sport, and now that I've gotten to college, I've joined rugby, which is stereotypically less feminine. But I feel like between the two sports, I'm still playing them the same way I would play either one, just putting the same support, like effort, and then enjoying the sports each as much. I think other people are the ones who bring the stereotype into it. For any sport, really, it's just like about who you are and how you want to play the sport. It's not how masculine you are, how feminine you are. Like your levels of masculinity and femininity aren't really depending on how, or don't really affect how well you play a sport. It's just kind of stereotypes that kind of should be overcome.
I played also frisbee on a women's team and also on a mixed team. And I played abroad in South Korea and then here in the United States. So in the U.S., I feel like that they are very rigid about the gender expectations. Whenever we play, they always ask for like a gender lineup matching. Like if I'm a woman, I'm going to cover a woman on defense. And it's kind of uniform, I guess, in all countries, but in America, it seems more to have a stigma than it did in Korea. Like Korea was expected, but it was okay. Like it was just fair. But in America, it feels like that the guys don't want to have to be covered by a woman, or they don't want to have to cover a woman because it doesn't mean they can't play a fun game. And also there's just differences in, I think, how you're treated as a woman. Like I don't think you're really incorporated into the game as much as you would have been if you're a man.
So rugby is a predominantly like viewed as a male sport. So being a woman rugby player, I think people view you differently, or like view you inherently as being masculine. So it's hard to portray like femininity in rugby. Like get across that rugby is also a woman's sport. So portraying women in a sport that's inherently masculine, or viewed as inherently masculine, has been difficult as a woman rugby player.
Here you go. Alright, so I think that like female sports in general are just sexualized. So like cheerleading and like gymnastics is always seen feminine, and then more butch or like masculine ones that have sports that have to do with more physical contact, like rugby or softball, are given another, like the other side of that. So I've dabbled in an array of sports, and with that, like I think that like those sports give off like a genderized idea of who those people are. So like my favorite has been rugby, and I think that due to those stereotypes that come in with rugby, as well as like the structure of the sport itself, creates like a close community, so that those who feel comfortable and like identify with things other than like the norms of heterosexuality and like being just female allows them to feel more comfortable coming out and like being who they truly are.
Okay. I would say that being on a team with such a wide range of sexualities really helped me as I developed mine and learned more about myself and started dating a girl for the first time. It was really cool to be around people who had experience and who could relate and who were just like in general so supportive and helpful. I think being on that team and having that in my life really helped my process in general, so I'm glad they happened at the same time.